I will ever buy a Mac. I think I'm done with Mac forever now.
Oh, wait till you say that, and then you go to Windows, and the exact same thing
Oh no, the
happens.
Mac Studio just died completely.
Wait, what?
What?
Yeah.
They usually sits in your
Here's the
drawer.
title for this episode. Everything's exploding.
To be fair, Microsoft's a software company too, and yet we all know what happens with
Oh,
Windows.
Microsoft. Microsoft.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the iTunes Fanboy Podcast. In this episode, we are very excited to start the third season of the iTunes Fanboy Podcast. And as always, I am Teddy Maggart from the iTunes Fanboy.
I'm Tabby Cat.
My name is Alpha DeWolf.
And in this episode, we have more of a free episode. I guess you can say because we only have 3 topics planned because we're recording this on June 1st, which is right before WWDC. And WWDC is probably going to happen while this episode is still being edited. So basically all the Apple news right now is bogus because we have to wait for the event to happen. So it'll be outdated by the time it releases, which is you guys are watching it. So that's why we have to be...
I try to edit this as fast as I can, guys, except I'm a very busy guy.
Yeah, so it takes us quite a while to make episodes.
Yeah, my apologies for the last one getting out so late. It's because I wasn't here.
Yeah,
I was gone on vacation. Yet I somehow managed to have enough time to make an emergency video for some very exciting news that we might discuss, but it's not Apple-related news. It's
Oh yeah, it's the
electric
it's
car
about
stuff.
Ford
but-
switching to NACS, but we'll save that for... Or we
Yeah.
might not even discuss that, but... The first topic that we want to discuss to open Season 3 out with is that Final Cut Pro is launched on the iPad, and I haven't personally used it, but I know Alpha has a lot to say on it, and I know Tabby has used it and probably has a lot to say about it, so I'll give it off to you guys now.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one here who's made a full video on, edited with the iPad Pro, Final Cut on the iPad, right?
Yep.
Well, I've uploaded something to my fun channel with it, but that wasn't I wouldn't say it's a full-on my style edited video, but yeah, I dipped my toes into it.
Yeah. So what I did was I actually pretty thoroughly went into it, right? I actually used basically all the features that it had to offer, and
I noticed.
When we're recording this, my I believe latest video, depending on whether or not this is a shorter episode, how quickly this gets edited, I'm not sure. Like tomorrow I might be releasing a new video, but it was a full-length video. Basically, it's like 5 minutes. And what I will say about it is it's not full-featured at all. There is a lot of major components that I used in Final Cut Pro 10 on my MacBook or my Mac Studio that I just can't do on the iPad. Now, the most major thing here, there's no voiceover ability. And this comes into play when every single voice recording app on the iPad is terrible. For example, the Voice Memos app that's built into the iPad, that isn't really the best quality. And every other third-party app that I've used has just had ads and not optimized for the iPad at all. Now, the second thing, there's no plugins. I can't install, custom transitions or anything, at least from my knowledge, and it is really annoying in that way. And third, this just proves how little Apple cares about their own features. It does not support Stage Manager. Because I connected it up to my studio display. It was pretty much the same exact thing as I would get on the iPad. There's no different UI scaling. It's just everything is huge on the display. There's, you can't take advantage of that 27-inch studio display. When apps like Discord, third-party apps that you wouldn't expect to be, optimized for Stage Manager are. So that's my thoughts so far. Now, there is a few things that it does better than the macOS version of Final Cut, and that really comes into just newer transitions, newer effects, newer titles. But
I did discover that Final Cut got those though.
oh, really? No way.
Yeah, I actually searched through Final Cut on the Mac. It got those same exact transitions and new background effects.
Yeah, that's actually so that basically proves that the Final Cut version of the iPad. All I can say about it, iMovie 2.0 or iMovie Plus. That's what they should have called it.
Yeah.
Because if it's
Yeah.
not Final Cut Pro.
Technically, it's iMovie.
So I feel like, huh?
Oh, technically, it's iMovie minus in that sense because I did a video back in April of 2021 called "What is Apple Park," which is about Apple Park, and I used the voiceover feature and made that video on my iPad 7th generation on iPadOS 13, mind you, and I could do voiceovers in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things this does better than iMovie. Like, for example, I can have, to my knowledge, about just as many clips on the timeline as I want. Something that iMovie really doesn't allow. At least when I used it, it didn't. And it's just one
To my knowledge, iMovie in general is limited to 2 clips.
No, it's not limited to
Yeah.
2 clips. I've tried it before with like 10 or 20 clips and it's worked just fine.
On top of each other?
No, I've done 2 clips. Oh, no, only 2 clips on top of each other, but I can add an additional audio track.
Yeah, you can stack multiple audio stuff, but you can't stack more than 2 video clips on top of each other.
I thought you meant putting video clips
my
on.
hard drive just made a
Attaching them
funky
to.
noise. I think my hard drive just died.
Oh dear.
Sorry to hear that.
That just made a funny noise. That thing like grinded against something.
Yep, that thing's dead.
Yeah, but other than that, right, the video was actually decent, I'd say.
Yeah, I really liked that video.
So did I.
That,
Yeah, it was more of like a concept video. It's not a video that I was expecting to put out. It's just something that I made it as a proof of concept for Final Cut on the iPad. I was like, what can I make a video on? Looked in front of me, saw my phone. Okay. Now, color grading and all that, I'm not a color master. I'm not a professional in that sense, so I'm not sure how that would play out. But also,
yeah, I might be able to elaborate on that. So, from what I've discovered, actually, one question I need to ask. What iPad did you use to test it?
I used the 2022 iPad Pro M2 12.9 inch.
Okay, so basically almost fully loaded. I did my testing on a base M1 iPad Air.
Is there any performance issues? Because I didn't have all that many performance issues. I think Telosiv said it crashed.
Yeah,
I
that
started
was
watching his
interesting
vi-
because
He was just
he
whining about.
bought. Yeah,
Nope, he did.
he's still got the 2018, but
He bought an M1
for all.
or an M2.
He bought it just to review. No, he bought the M1 refurbished because he's refusing to buy Apple products that he doesn't deem good, brand new anymore. He bought the M1 iPad Pro refurbished so he could just test Final Cut. He's already sent it back though.
Yeah, because honestly, these people that go to iPads, instead of MacBooks for professional things like photo, video. Also, I actually used Photomator, I believe, Pixelmator, what's it called, to make the anything static image related. That worked better than Final Cut. It had more features than Final Cut.
Yeah, I discovered that. I use Photoshop for making thumbnails, and Photoshop had more features than Final Cut.
Yeah, I mean, even on the iPad, Photoshop is limited to every extent. It is limited.
Yeah, it's limited, but I'd say it's still more advanced compared to what Final Cut gave me and such. But like, I at least had I actually recorded my entire process of making that whole video, including the thumbnail aspects. So the way I recorded that whole process was I had OBS going on my Mac, and I AirPlayed the entire thing going on my iPad to one of my displays and recorded that with the Mac. And I'll say, despite that, I was streaming the whole time. The app never crashed, but those waveforms were very slow every single time I cut the clip and adjusted its position in the timeline.
I believe I saw that in my own usage.
Yeah, I don't understand what the deal with that was.
You didn't use any keyboard, did you? You just used the touchscreen?
I just used the touchscreen and the Apple Pencil.
So I actually used the Magic Keyboard, and I'll say this, I think the Magic Keyboard makes the experience a little bit worse depending on how you use it. So
That's what Talos of Tech said too.
Yeah, he said that there's a lack of shortcuts.
So what I did was I just started using the touchscreen for everything, and then I used the keyboard, explicitly for hotkeys or key shortcuts, I guess. And that works best because using that trackpad, I hate to say it, the Magic Trackpad is useless on the Magic Keyboard. I do not use the trackpad at all.
That's why I bought the one without the trackpad.
Yeah, I wanted to have the extra ability for the trackpad, and it was on sale, so.
Yeah, I don't go keyboard case at all, and that's because, in my opinion, if I want a keyboard attached to my device, buy a Mac, buy a laptop. That's what it's for.
I would say that, I wanted something that was a bit smaller than my Mac that I
Same.
could carry around, though. That's why I did it myself.
But yeah, my experience editing with that was so you said you didn't do much color grading at all. I have to color grade all of my footage because I just love adding extra saturation. I'm sorry if there are any people out there who say that, oh, it's too much or whatever. I'm sorry. I like it. It works. I haven't gotten any complaints on any of my videos, so deal with it. But a thing that I did not appreciate was the units. It does not use the exact same units in color grading between Final Cut on the iPad and Final Cut on the Mac. They're not the same units.
Oh, that's pretty messed up.
So I was completely guessing blind on this.
And we experienced a little connection issue, so, okay, connection issue resolved. Back to the show.
Welcome back, Tabby.
I will ever buy a Mac. I think I'm done with Mac forever now.
Oh, wait, you say that and then you go to Windows and the exact same thing happens.
Oh no, the Mac Studio just died completely.
Wait, what?
What?
Yeah. I'm done with that.
Oh my god.
I'm pissed right now. I'm on the MacBook Pro right now. That thing.
How long have you had that studio?
I know you have a lot. I know Tabby has a lot of issues with his tech, but even.
Oh, shoot, he lost his recording.
Yeah. Just lost, 4 months of info? Wow.
Oh.
Oh.
A few minutes later.
So what were we talking about before
Final Cut Pro
Tabby's
on
Mac
the
Studio
iPad.
really Alright, so color correcting, that's what I was talking about, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, oh yeah, I mentioned Final Cut does not use the same units for color correcting on the iPad compared to Final Cut on the Mac. And oh geez, I gotta visit this application again just to remember everything. Let me see, Final Cut. Edit. So also the color correcting tools, they are so buried in there to the point where it is really hard to find them.
Talos of Tech mentioned that too.
I'm trying to remember. Where
I
did
feel
I
like
find them?
everything on the new Final Cut for iPad is buried in so many layers deep, right? And they do that to prevent consumers, like regular consumers, from using the app and learning it. And they make that a barrier between consumer and pro user. So if the pro users need it, they can, get it. But if the consumers want to mess around with the app, they won't find anything that's pro user.
But what pro user would buy Final Cut for this when this isn't very pro user centric?
Yeah, Alpha makes
The
a good
iPad
point.
Pro isn't a pro device. Any iPad is not a pro device. They can do things that a computer can do, but the Mac is the pro device. The iPad is the device that could be used for professional workloads, but it's not meant to be. But the Mac is what pros use. I don't really know a lot of people that buy a Mac just to have a computer. It's usually businesses, even at a receptionist's office, that's being used professionally. That's somebody's profession to use the computer.
Well, I have an aunt who actually uses a Mac as a personal computer, not an iPad, but yeah, for the most part, iPads do the best job at being the personal computer.
I mean, iPads do a decent job at a lot of things.
If I recall, you can run QuickBooks on this thing, do taxes and such.
Oh yeah, you
Care of
can.
it.
I just had to prevent the sun from coming in quite as much because it was glaring.
So, all right. So, my perspective in editing this as well. For the most part, you know how I always do the Talos of style where there's a ton of jump cuts everywhere? I'll say there was one advantage that maybe the Mac has this with a keyboard shortcut, but I am not aware of it at least. With the cut options, I am annoyed that you can't just select, okay, everywhere I tap on the timeline, this is where you split it. But there is a function where if I tap there, it'll trim the clip to that position. That was something that I did like.
There are
But
a few
also...
things that
Oh wait, there's another thing I forgot that it also just completely doesn't even have.
What?
Sound effects!
What?
I didn't notice that. I don't use
There's
sound effects.
I've searched all the audio libraries this thing has. There is no library of sound effects.
iMovie on the... Let me go on iMovie. Let me go on my iPad right now and go to iMovie.
I use sound effects all the time. And this thing had nothing. I was going to use that cartoon boing or cartoon bounce sound effect that I use on the Fun Channel all the time. Nope, doesn't exist.
There's a lot of things that just don't exist.
First
Yeah,
of all,
there's
it's
so
proof
many
that-
functions that's missing. So much functionality that's missing in this.
Yep,
This
well-
is supposed to be a professional grade app?
Sound effects on iMovie on the
Now,
iPad.
what I can also say is, why is this missing? There doesn't seem to be a reason for this to just not be there. Because technically, I don't know if there's some sort of, Mac Studio seems to be turning on, but anyways, it seems like, from what it looks like, there's no reason that Mac apps and iOS apps can't technically be interchangeable.
iOS apps
Yeah, I
can
see
run
no
on
reason
Mac,
for
but
that.
Mac's app can't.
They're running on the same silicon!
Yes, now they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
There's no excuse now.
And remember in 2007 what Steve Jobs said about the iPhone? It was running a modified... Oh, there goes the Mac Studio bootlooping. But it was running a modified version of 10.5 Leopard. So, sure, it's modified. But still, they both use .app files. I'm sure there's something that would have to be tweaked, modified, but still, it's one of those things where it probably could run just fine.
Yeah, I mean, it would not be optimized for a touchscreen, but I mean, we got
Well, yeah,
a
for
lot of
sure.
pro users who buy the iPad Pro. I'm pretty sure a lot of them buy the Apple Pencil, which is a precision-based tool.
And they also can use a mouse or a trackpad.
Well, I guess, but one of the things that I have said about the iPad, basically forever, since they started with the trackpad thing, anything that runs on the iPad should, number one, be optimized straightforward directly for the touchscreen. And
Absolutely,
anything
I
with the
agree with that
trackpad-
100%.
I agree.
And anything after that is, the trackpad should be an afterthought, basically, because it should be worked in, but it shouldn't be the main thought. You see how all the apps aren't now becoming smaller because there's a trackpad that's precision, and it's not, there's no mouse pointer. It's a circle. I like that because it's not supposed to be a computer. It's supposed to be another iPadOS. As much as I hate the word, it's supposed to be iPadOS and not macOS. Which is why I don't believe that Apple will ever incorporate macOS onto the iPad. I don't think it's ever
Same
going
here.
to be an option to sideload, and I hope not, because it's stupid. I don't know why.
It just
would
wouldn't
sideload
work.
macOS. Yeah,
Try to
exactly,
try to put macOS on an iPad Mini. That's going to be fun to use.
Oh yeah.
Try thinking of this. Then people are going to want to be able to put iOS on the Mac. Yeah, to try and
There's probably some idiots that would. There are probably some idiots that would want that. I don't know why.
There are probably some people that would buy the maxed out, whatever the actual, most expensive good computer is. So I guess the maxed out Mac Studio, maxed out Mac Mini, maxed out MacBook Pro, just to put iOS 16, 17 on it. And then say, yeah, now I get to use Final Cut Pro on the iPad for $5 a month instead of the full Final Cut Pro.
Yeah, that's the other thing that boggles me. Just why is it the way it is? I'm glad that they optimize it for a touchscreen, but Apple, there's one thing you really need to learn about this. Optimizing things for the touchscreen, good. But optimize for the touchscreen does not mean dumb down the actual smart functionality from the application.
It also does not mean make it a subscription.
Well, the subscription thing, I feel like that's probably just going to be there, $50 a year. That's not bad. It
is pretty
something,
bad
but
since you're
it's not,
going to be doing it. Pros are going to be doing it for longer, for many years, to the point where after a while, Final Cut Pro will just, after 4 years with the student discount, you'll basically be overpaying for Final Cut Pro on the iPad.
Now that I think of it, I see another fault with the subscription service that's not about the money. The subscription service, in a way, makes me think that Apple's not confident on Final Cut Pro on the iPad, because it makes me feel like Apple is, saying, okay, we'll try this, somebody can buy a subscription for a year, and after that, it's somebody is going to be having a expiring subscription, and they can pretty much say, yeah, let's just shut this down, shut this project down, compared to if they just did the full $300, which honestly should be more like $100 on the iPad.
Oh, with how bad it is, yeah, absolutely.
It should be $20 on the
Honestly,
iPad.
It's about the same, maybe worse than LumaFusion. LumaFusion was like, what, $30?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, so I don't see a use in
I'm so
subscription
confused
services
on
like
this
that.
application.
It's a confusing app. It is very confusing. I don't know.
Who is it
what they're
for?
Going for.
It's not for pros. It's not for Joe
exactly.
Schmo.
And if Apple wanted to, they could incorporate it with Final Cut Pro on the MacBook. very, like, they could make it go hand in hand so you can use the same project files. Of course, not everything would work properly, but
If
they
I
could make it
recall,
so
there's
it
an
could be,
option
like,
to export the project to Final Cut for Mac.
That even
That
shows
is
you how Apple's
pretty
not
cool.
confident about it because they're still making it seem like you'll still need it on the
It's
Mac.
another Swift Playgrounds.
What I will also say is cool is, or if this would be cool, if Apple said, okay, you can buy Final Cut Pro on the iPad and on the Mac, and you can use the iPad as this massive trackpad, this massive second display, you know.
Oh,
obviously more.
that's cool. That's a
maybe
cool
you
idea.
Maybe you could put the timeline on the iPad. That would give the iPad mini a whole lot more of a purpose. Maybe you could have the timeline on the iPad and just have the, you know, whatever display you want as, you know, a, viewer. That would be cool.
Like, with Sidecar, you already got that functionality.
I guess, but it's more reversed, right? You could have... Wait. No, I guess not. I guess you could make it so you could scroll through it with touchscreen, but still. There's a lot of potential that Apple has to integrate the two because they're both Apple ecosystem products.
Yeah.
Everybody's all Apple ecosystem this, Apple ecosystem that. Make the Apple ecosystem the Apple ecosystem and give cool functionality.
Yeah, like, oh, here's a function that they actually broke with their latest update. I can't unlock my Mac with my watch anymore.
Oh yeah.
Ah, that's kind of stupid.
They broke that functionality. Hope they fix it in their next update. But, yeah, my Mac no longer unlocks with my watch. I now have to type the password in every single time I'm in desktop mode.
Yeah, that's kind of stupid.
Don't know how they broke that.
I don't know how they break half the stuff they break.
There's...
But one
as an Apple user, I've never been more frustrated with what Apple is doing. Like, they have seemed to all of a sudden drop the ball. They've gotten lazy.
Have you guys tried using what's it called? OCR on the iPhone recently?
What's OCR?
What is that?
It's optical camera text stuff, the text reading.
Oh, you were talking about
Oh,
that.
the
No, I
original.
haven't.
Where you point your camera towards.
Oh, text recognition, yeah. Let me see. Oh gosh. He's gone again.
And we experienced a little connection issue, so, okay, connection issue resolved. Back to the show.
I think I got it working. I took a picture of some text on a box, and I got it.
No, so it works, right? But it's super bad, where it will only recognize like half of the text if it's stacked text. So like
Stacked, let me see.
So if I'm trying to scan in Discord, it might work here. So it'll get the text box itself, but it won't get my direct messages.
Dude, that's a problem.
I'm back.
Let me see. Create a note. Oh, I forgot I counted how many EVs on my trip. Jeez. Paste. Yeah, this don't look right. I copied text from the image and pasted it onto notes, and this don't look right.
It's really not good.
Yeah, I can see how.
They do a lot of things wrong.
For example, subscription services.
Some things that should not need one.
Well, what else does Apple do wrong that drives me nuts? So, I don't know. How about that giant lump that's on the back? How about that giant butt that's on the back of my phone?
I expected you to not like that. That's actually one of the things that I'm surprised that I don't mind about the new iPhones.
Oh, I
not
hate
even-
I hate the camera bump on iPhone so much. It's so thick and so heavy, and it's like, why, Apple?
Yeah, there's a
Why?
reason
Why
why
not
I
just carry
voted
a
this to
pro
be the most beautiful
camera?
iPhone out there.
Like a DSLR camera. Like, it makes the iPhone
like
11's
how it is
camera bump
because-
look tiny. Or the 11 Pro's... Like, let me get my 11 Pro Max right now. I'll show you how tiny the camera bump is on that.
Truth is, I don't mind the size.
Anymore. I don't have the 11 Pro Max anymore.
Oh, you got rid of that?
I still have both.
Yeah, I gave it to a friend. Or I kind of half
Yeah.
traded it to a friend.
Yeah, I don't mind the size of it. I just hate the layout of it.
So do I.
And people's argument is, well, it has rotational symmetry. The cameras are equidistant from each other.
No.
Well, if you're someone like me who has access to special measuring equipment, I measured it. They are not equidistant from each other.
I got both my 11 Pro Maxes here.
The one on the left is better.
What?
Gold is better than midnight green.
Oh, it's
Gold is better
absolutely.
than midnight green.
The midnight green looks like a midnight vomit.
I am not a fan of midnight green.
Oh, I hate it too.
Or alpine green.
I actually
Alpine's
like Alpine
fine.
green, but I hate midnight green.
I liked
Right.
Alpine, actually.
It looks a bit different in person. It's like way darker. And the color kind of fades over time.
Are these do you like the greens on these iPods?
Yeah. Aluminum green was way different than glass green.
Oh yeah, it sure is different.
Oh, just another feature I forgot that iPads don't support. Well, actually, they do support. It's Final Cut on the iPad that doesn't support it. I have a 64 gig iPad, right?
Yeah.
That's not a lot of storage. So, what happens if my Final Cut timeline fills up?
What does it do?
Well, typically what a lot of people will do is they'll plug in an SSD with larger storage and edit off of that. That functionality don't exist on this thing.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh my! I've got a 64 gigabyte iPad. This is my only 64 gigabyte iPad. All my other iPads are 32, or either 32 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes.
I feel like if Apple was to do that, then they would also kind of think the way that Apple people think is if they do that, then they're gonna have to incorporate it in every other aspect of iOS. They're gonna have to make it so like you can offload photos directly to a drive, which you can, but you can't, if that makes sense.
Oh, we should be able to do that anyway. Especially with USB-C coming to the iPhone later this year, this better be a function in iOS 17.
You can save it to a USB drive directly, but it doesn't delete it from the phone. You'll have to go and do that manually.
Well, some people like to have backup copies.
Even over Lightning. Yeah, even over Lightning you can do that, by the way. If you have the correct USB drive, that is.
Yeah, I know there's some
but with
Lightning USB
USB-C
drives
it will
out there.
become more common.
I had a Lightning USB drive. It died a few days ago.
How convenient. Seems like everything in your house is dying all of a sudden.
There was a YouTuber named Michael MJD that managed to install Windows 3.1 on his iPhone 11 from floppy disks with a USB with a lot of tweaking to USB floppy drive.
You know, I just realized maybe I'm getting some of Tabby's influence today because actually I killed the power at the office today.
Oh, what happened there?
I blew the breaker just by trying to vacuum the floor.
Oh, that's something I think we've all had to deal with.
That doesn't sound like a very good electric. Sounds like your electrical system needs to be
Yeah.
upgraded in your office. Vacuum should
It's
not
a 20
break-
amps.
And run,
It's 20 amps of
For me, it
service
was trying
for
to-
just the office.
Should be 30, maybe.
for me, it was For me, it was trying to run a vacuum and a carpet cleaner off the same breaker.
Oh,
Or not off the same breaker, off the same amp or whatever it's called.
circuit.
Circuit.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, all circuits are hooked up to the same break. Well, every circuit has its own breaker. So.
And they all
Just-
connect to the electrical box.
Yeah.
They usually sits in
Here's
your
the
garage.
title for this episode. Everything's exploding.
I don't know if that's a great idea because that's not really what this episode's about yet.
Oh, jeez. So, I'm out of things to rant with for Final Cut for iPad. It's slower to use. It's missing so much functionality. The functionality it has is not great, and I don't understand who this is for. So,
Alright, our next topic is that AM radio is being removed from cars with customer backlash that led Ford to reverse their decision on it. Whereas they're going to remove it, but now they're keeping
What,
it.
people aren't being able to buy AM radios anymore?
No, AM radios are just being removed from cars.
Who cares? I had a Nissan rental car. That thing didn't even have navigation. They're gonna be worse.
Oh, yeah. Like, AM radio...
I mean, my parents actually use the AM radio, so
But your parents have older car.
I mean, just connect. Can't you do AM radio through a phone?
iPhones don't support it anymore. Samsung phones still do, though.
AM. Well, how much longer is that going to be, though? At one point, there's going to be the Galaxy A32, whatever, A2008, whatever they're going to call it, which does support AM radio. Then the S25, which doesn't.
Apple removed it on the iPhone
Because
8, 8
A-series
Plus, and the...
phones-
Apple removed it with the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and 10. Like, they removed it quite a while ago. And that was as of when Janus Cycle, the YouTuber Janus Cycle, or Janus Cycle, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. He made a video on phone radios, and that was back in, I believe, 2022. And he still said that, and I haven't heard anything, so I assume Samsung phones still have it, but...
there are some phones that still support it, but it's a hardware thing.
Yeah, like, I actually have an old I actually have a recent Alcatel flip phone I got back in 2020 that is from 2018, which here it is.
I just realized.
This one has an AM radio.
I just
function.
realized that a new flip phone is like the age of an old phone. Like, you can say a flip phone from like 2014 is new, but an
Yeah.
iPhone from 2014 is
This one
Yeah,
is
that-
from.
flip phones are.
Yeah.
Hey, this flip phone still has juice in it. I haven't powered this thing on in like a year. Yeah, I posted about this to my Instagram and my Twitter a long time ago, like back in May 2020. This was my neighbor's before he passed away.
So, I mean, I know some people who still use AM radio, especially because actually where I live, it's hard to get FM signal in a lot of places due to the hills and such. So,
I have a lot of hills in my area, and I still have and FM radio is still the standard.
The last time I used a radio was 2015, I believe. So I don't even know what my area is like for that.
I've used radios. I use radios occasionally since my grandmother has some old ones. So I used one back in August 2021, and I unboxed that radio on my YouTube channel back in February. But I don't even use radios anymore. Like the biggest argument that people have is that governments deliver highway alerts over FM radio. But I'm like, duh, governments can deliver it over FM radio.
so what are the alerts that we randomly get on our iPhones all the time?
Well, I have mine
The other
turned
things
off,
that
but
go off all night.
Oh yes, that's why I had to
it's
turn
hard
mine
for me to turn
off.
them off because I have all kinds of phones that were. I used to have all my phones powered on at once. In a locker, a metal locker. When that thing went off at 5 a.m., I didn't know what was going on.
Yep, FM radio.
Ooh.
This iOS phone has FM radio. I've been woken up by Amber alerts before, government alerts on my phone, on my family members' phones before, but but I keep them turned off because the sound frightens me.
Do you have cable TV still?
No, I do not.
Oh.
But I know
cable
the
TV has,
but my
PAS alerts.
my grandmother still has cable though, and in I believe late 2020 or early 2021 we got a weather alert, and that's the first time I ever knew of that happening on TVs.
Yeah.
That's an advantage of streaming, guys. Like, this is why I don't get like, AM radio really doesn't need to be on cars anymore. Especially because there's still FM radio that you can listen to signal on.
Well, that depends on if towers are still in range or depending on how obstructed it gets. Because once you drive about half an hour southwest of where I live, it's nothing but fuzz for the FM signals, but the AM signal is still clear as day.
I understand that, but like, why do people need? People just don't use radio enough anymore. Most people just use Spotify on their phones. Like, I get obviously.
I mean, see, here's the thing: 3G had to be shut down at some point. People whined about that to all the extents when that happened, but honestly,
It has no
I hate
effect.
to say it because I do understand where they're coming from, but at some point when the majority of people have moved on from a technology, it just does make sense to cut it off. Like 3G networking, that just had to be cut off at some point. Same with radios, really, it sucks, but it has to be cut off at some point, even if there is, a small percentage of people that still use it.
But I think their radio's eventually gonna get cut, guys. Like, there's no. Like, it just has constant commercials. It depends on range. Like, and you can't pick the song, and it'll oftentimes play garbage music.
Well, some radios will allow you to call in and request a specific song, but
Yeah, but still, like, you can't do much. But still, with radios, like, you just can't. Radio is an obsolete technology. It was invented in the early 20th century. Everybody's grandparents grew up with it.
I still wouldn't call it obsolete, but it's old.
It's not necessarily obsolete because it's free, but it does still have a neat purpose, but its purpose is going away.
Well, I've got no more thoughts on that subject.
Alright. Does Tabby have any more thoughts?
Not really, no.
Alright, our final topic for this episode that's planned is that we actually don't have many guests so far for season 3. As we only have one guest that's confirmed to be on the show, and it is Jordan Riddles from the iTunes fan. Or no, the iPhone fan.
Whatever happened to that Robert guy, Apple Geekhead or whatever?
We just cannot make
Apple
timings
Gecko.
work out. We just cannot make timings work out, but have you seen his latest reply to... Have you seen one of his latest replies to a tweet? Is he starting
No,
to
what did he
agree
say?
with us with one of my... He stated that iOS 17 should support the A12 devices and higher, and drop the A11 devices, as well as the A9 and the A10.
I mean, I agree with that myself. I agree that.
I think it should... I think
Yeah,
iOS
but
17
I wouldn't
should
want to
put-
leave I wouldn't want to leave devices on a buggy software. If I were to drop it, I'd want to at least give their last software something stable.
The reason why it's buggy is because Apple has to optimize it for everything. Like, I made a whole YouTube video about this.
Yeah, I don't think you understand how Apple designs iOS.
Yes, I do. Or at least understand the purpose, which is that
you don't know that basically they design it for each and every single device, not like for them specifically, and not they're all sharing the same software with some features disabled? There's a reason why when updates roll out to 14s, I still don't get it until a couple hours or sometimes a couple days later.
So why was the iOS 9 so bad on the 4S?
Yeah, Alpha, why is it?
Or the iOS 12 on the 6?
You're asking the wrong question to me because I don't know much about iPhones or what happened with iOS 9 on the 4S or whatever happened.
Or what about iOS 15 on the iPhone 6s and the SE What about that? Or what about iOS 4 on the iPhone 3G?
Well, for one, the core of the operating system, it's not that run to hard. It's the feature set that's adding onto it. That's what's... Like,
but they're still
we keep noticing it's the feature sets that keep bugging out most of the time. Yeah, I don't think it's... To me, that just doesn't make sense because, well, for one, wasn't there... I saw a poll where it was mostly the iPhone 14 Pros getting most of the bugs while all the older devices, like the 13, didn't have as many of them.
Okay, I figured the reason for that. The reason is that because Apple has to design, again, the same core features for iOS on so many different iPhones. They have to optimize it, as we've gone into on this podcast before, they have to optimize it for older iPhones, so the newer iPhones customers effectively get cheaped out on when we're not cheaping out on them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me, actually.
Just watch my video. It makes perfect sense.
Something about it feels off. No, I found a lot of problems with that.
How?
I found a lot of problems. I haven't completely formulated a way to explain it, but there was definitely some problems with that video. And I want to make a reaction video to that at some point, but again, I haven't fully formulated my thoughts. But something just doesn't seem right.
Yeah, just remember, I can make a counter reaction video because I have all the iPhones I could possibly want to make. I have most of the iPhones I could possibly want to prove everything. Because I've been in iOS. Because I have 36 iPhones now.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That's a long.
I've actually been debating on selling some.
Than you can count on two hands.
What? Yes.
Dude, you got more iPhones than we can count on all of our hands combined.
Oh, yeah. I had
Yeah, you've got an iPhone or two, man.
Yeah, I have too many.
Yeah, you definitely have one or two.
I just have 3.
And a half, right? Because you have like a broken 5C.
It's my 10s, my 13 Pro Max, and my 5C. So that's it.
I guess, and the iPod Touch, so 3.5.
Yeah, I want to call
iPod
that
Touches
a phone,
aren't
but...
an iPhone.
Well, yeah, that's why it's half. It's half a phone, right?
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
3.5.
Yeah, I've been debating on selling some stuff in the collection, actually.
Maybe I'll buy it.
Because the Black Book, I've got no use for it.
Oh, I don't. I probably
my
won't be able to
original
buy
MacBook.
that. Probably won't be able to buy that since I already have 2
if you-
black books.
if you do sell the black MacBook, if you're fine with contacting me, I might be interested in that. If you're good with that,
It's fine by
if
me.
you are willing to sell it, because I actually don't have one of those, and I never have.
It's fine by me. Some of the keys don't work on it, but
Seems like
I have a working.
Seems like a cool
Oh, I have
lifestyle.
I have a parts black book that Tabby could maybe buy to swap the keyboard out on.
Yeah, they seem like really cool devices.
Oh, they are. Just if
I
my
guess
first
that
one
I
is put
have a
together
black
correctly.
Well, I have a space gray book technically, because my MacBook is space gray, but it's basically black,
Not a real black book, though.
except for the discoloration that it's getting.
Oh.
You know, that happens. to me. I
scratches
just noticed
or
after a
something.
while. Nah, it's just the UV light. I'm pretty sure fades.
Oh,
all the
this is
time.
Ah,
This is actually an issue on my Space Gray 6S. A really bad issue.
Oh yeah. Is it like around the case? Is it like around where a case was on it?
This is what my Space Gray 6S looks like. Don't know how well you can see it on camera, but it was the cheapest
around the
6S I
Apple
could
logo?
find on eBay at the time. I wasn't iCloud locked.
How much was that, and when did you get it?
$65 back in January 2021.
How many gigs? Wow, those things went for a lot of money in 2021.
Actually, that was
Those
way
things
down.
were
That was
expensive.
like $50 down from what they were a year before that.
Dude, those things are expensive.
iPhone 6s are even pretty high.
Dude, those things go for like $20 now. Well, $20 for a 16 gig one, like 35 for 32, I think. I don't know. I don't really have a use for any 16 gigabyte iPhone 6s on iOS 15 or 6Ss.
Yeah.
I think I finally got my counter argument figured out. If
What is it?
iOS is limited and buggy on all of the new hardware because it's supposed to be optimized for the older hardware as well, then why is it still buggy for the older hardware? Why is it still just as unoptimized as for
It's
the new
because
hardware?
the older hardware is not supposed to be running it in the first place.
I feel like it's more because
It bugs
I
out the
think
same
that
way
it's-
as on the new hardware, so
It
what's
bugs
the
out-
difference?
It bugs out the same way because
I think that it's because of how they're working with it. They have to make it work for both, and they can't have one of them be that much better than the other. So the problems that the old hardware has to deal with, the new hardware has to also. I feel like that's partially what
Yeah.
it is.
It shouldn't be that hard because all of what Apple does is iterations upon iterations of
You
their
say-
stuff.
Well, Apple's
So if anything, it
Apple's
should be
basically
simple.
Apple's basically halfway a software company, so I don't really know why they got to deal with or why this stuff even happens.
to be fair, Microsoft's a software company too, and yet we all know what happens with
Well,
Windows.
Microsoft is Microsoft is Microsoft.
I mean, Windows was based off of a clone operating system in the first place, so that explains it.
Why can I not partition this drive? It's not letting me partition my T7. Or the old T7 that I used to use for everything that I just now use for backup. I can't partition it. That's weird.
In macOS or
Oh,
Windows.
macOS. Why is it on master boot record?
Partitioning drives in
I don't know
macOS
about
seems
there.
to be weird. That's why most people use Super Duper on macOS and not Disk Utility.
Yeah, that never worked for me. Unfortunately.
I've never tried it, so I have no clue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's just the issue. I think that's why. Well, actually, I still don't know why they're not. The iOS is still buggy, but that's why I don't think that older hardware is the problem because If the old hardware can run it, then the new hardware should be able to run it just fine.
Nope,
But
that's
the old hardware
The
cannot
new
run
hardware
it.
does run. The new hardware does run things quicker. It's just the things that the new Apple can't say. Okay, here's iOS 17 on the iPhone XS. Half of the things that you can do, or half you can only do half of the things on the XS that you can do on the iPhone 15 Pro. You know, Apple can't just really say that, because then, you know, what are they going to do then? You know, there's going to be a lot of problems. So that's why Apple doesn't really, you know, say, okay, here's all these new major features that can run on anything.
It's like trying to run macOS Snow Leopard, for example, on my 2019 MacBook Pro. Even though it can run it just fine, it can't because it's too. Even though it has the hardware capable of running it, it can't. Technically, it can't because it's too new.
I accidentally sent that in the chat. Hold on. Meant to type that into my Spotlight search.
Do you have any other problems with
Oh.
my? Do you have any other problems with my video alpha?
That's really just the biggest one, because from just the way that things are built in general, you start low and work your way more advanced.
Well,
And usually that doesn't result in problems. So I think it's just Apple getting lazy.
I think it's just Apple late selling in the
in
middle,
general.
for example.
They've gotten lazy with so many other aspects.
It's like Apple trying to sell one-size-fits-all clothing for all the kids in my grade, as I used in my example, except for Old Navy. Like some kid on the bigger kids like me, I couldn't get it on because it'd be too big. But on some of the shorter kids I know, the shirt would basically be cut. The shirt would be way too big. And the same way goes for iPhones. What works
So
for
you're saying that Apple should give us cats instead of iPhones?
No, I'm not. Well, that actually isn't a bad idea to give us cats and iPhones. What I'm saying,
Alright.
You can keep the cats.
is that if Apple sells in the middle, then what works? Then it's going to be too much for the iPhone 8 to handle on iOS 17, but it'll be barely sized enough for the iPhone 14 Pro and 15 Pro to handle. But funnily enough, I don't notice that many bugs. But you don't hear that many bugs happening on the middle ground phones like the 12 and the 13.
Oh yeah, the 11 was just fine when I used it for the most part.
Yeah, so the middle ground is
yeah,
actually
what I-
great, but not the high ground and not
What I
the
will
low
say
ground.
is,
I met someone with hold on. I met someone with a 2020 iPhone. I don't remember exactly. Was that the 12 or something?
it was the 12.
I think it was the 12s. They did have massive issues with that. So it's not.
And see, it's not even.
Middle ones aren't.
And it's still crapping out.
It's a problem with all of them.
The majority, and that the 12, and that even the 12 series, like even though it's having less issues, it's still having issues. Like, come on, Apple, fix iOS. Yeah, again, they might have already fixed it by the time this episode releases, as we have an event coming up.
Yeah, I mean,
I hope that iOS 17.
it's just my thought process. And another thing too, a lot of these features that are broken, they're not that difficult tasks. In
They're
fact,
not,
I think
but
you
they're-
guys are throwing a little too much shade at the amount of processing power in these older phones.
They're not as capable. They're not that capable. They're weak. Okay, here's an analogy. I know I use kids.
These
as
are
an
not.
example here, but let.
I don't like how you keep describing it as, oh, this is like compared to the new stuff.
Okay.
It's not that. That's a very bad way of describing where it falls. Is it weaker than the new iPhones? Yes. Technically, yes. But is it that much weaker to the point where, oh my goodness, this thing's unusable?
No.
I get way too much of this from you guys.
Okay.
That's just not the case.
Here's my counter
See,
argument.
Apple
to
could
that.
make it. Apple could make it so the old phones are unusable, right? And it wouldn't be a bad thing because Apple would be giving us more features on the new phones. But it just feels like the iPhone 8, these new features that Apple could implement, the iPhone 8 can't handle, so the iPhone 15 won't be able to handle.
Oh, and not to mention. Okay, so
It's just not their thought
even
process.
though the iPhone 14 Pro,
The 8 and the 10 are missing a lot of features that even this phone has.
Okay, here's my.
The 8 and the 10, they do not have continuity camera. They do not have subject lift.
Well-
Those are some of the biggest highlights from iOS 16.
Okay, here's some.
Let's say that Apple does a major redesign of the camera app, and the iPhone 13 can do it, but the 12 can't. Then Apple did that before, and it didn't really go over that well. Let's say that Let's say that Apple does a major redesign of the settings app, and there's some new features that some phones can't handle in that. There's some features that you can enable and disable. The iPhone, 12 gets that, but the 11 doesn't. That's going to be a problem because there can't just be a big division on, when it becomes iOS 16 and a half or iOS 17 when, half the features that iOS 17 gets, the old phones can't handle, so they won't get, that's what Apple's trying to prevent.
Oh, not to mention that the iPhone. Oh, so here's my counter argument to Alpha. Okay, the iPhone 10s Max is not by any means a too bad phone in terms of hardware. Like it's better than the iPhone 8. It's better than the 10. It's better than the 6. It's better than the 5S. It's way better than the iPhone 3GS. Like you get it's better than all those phones. But there's still phones on top of that are higher. Like each generation of iPhone just keeps building up. So even though the older iPhones still can retain their strength, it's just that there's more stronger figures coming out. For example, even though back in 5th grade I was the tallest kid in my class in the school. However, last year in 8th grade I was not. That still didn't mean that I was still not taller than most of the. That still didn't mean that I wasn't taller than most of the kids, as I still was. And probably still am.
I'm really trying to figure out where this counter argument fits into the whole.
Well, what I'm saying.
I think he's just trying to tell us. that he was the tallest kid in his
No, I was. Okay, so let's say so the kids that are taller than me are like the iPhone 14 Pro in a sense. I'm like the iPhone 11 Pro in that sense, and a lot of the kids are like the 10Rs and 8s that other kids are the 10Rs and 8s that people use. That's where it fits in. Yeah, I give a lot of confusing metaphor. My metaphors can be confusing sometimes.
Yeah, I still don't get it. I'm sorry.
You don't get it? I literally explained it.
He's saying that there's other people that are shorter than him, but that doesn't mean he's the tallest person still.
There's still there's a lot of stuff that the iPhone XS Max is. There's a lot of phones that are way worse than the iPhone XS Max, but there's also phones that are better than the iPhone XS Max.
Yeah, but it's not like this is that much worse.
Technically,
That's the point I'm trying to make.
Technically,
it's not that much worse.
Usability-wise, it's not much worse. In fact, the iPhone 6 and iOS 12 runs about the same as even modern iPhones to this day. But what I'm saying is that even though usability-wise, even my Macintosh Plus is still around the same speed as my modern Mac, but maybe just a little bit slower. But my point is that even though even though it might not seem much worse, it is technically much worse. And technically,
that's the argument I'm trying to make. It's not technically that much worse.
It's worse in the nerdy way. but it's not worse from the normal way.
Yeah, but it's not that much worse than the nerdy way. That's my counter argument. That
Yes,
I'm
it
still
is
trying to
in
figure
the
out
nerdy.
how you're trying to counter
It's still
that.
worse in the nerdy way. You'll never get this, Alpha. Is this going to be the main argument of season 3? Is this going to be the next big argument after the iPhone XS Max?
Yeah, this. I think I'm just going to be done arguing about this at this point because neither of us are getting our points across, and
Yes, you're getting your points across to me, but I'm finding them bogus.
I'm finding yours bogus.
Mine are not
Sorry.
bogus. They're real.
I know how software is developed. I may not be a software engineer, but I at least know the basics of how software is developed update after update.
So do I. And everybody else, and no one else seems to have given that much counter argument to my latest YouTube video, about that, excuse me, so.
One question, did Elias comment on your video?
No, he did not.
That is very, very surprising, and I think we both know why.
Why?
Because he loves his old crap. Until he doesn't anymore, and he replaces his 2017 iPad Pro, his third or fourth one, with another 2022 iPad Air.
Well,
He loves his old crap until he realizes it's old crap.
Well, that's kind of how you're supposed to like old crap. Kind of like me and my now 3 iPhone 2Gs.
It's just
Well, at least that's collector's
a lot
item,
of
so you're
these-
not trying to use it as your main iPhone.
That is true.
yeah, it's just a lot of these features. They're
Last
all
year-
small things that they should all be able to handle, and they're not even
Last year he
optimized
said
for
that he
that.
would use. Last year he said that he would use an iPhone 5S to piss me off.
Maybe I should take the challenge and try to use the 5S for a week. I'd have to probably get a different... just to see how bad that is. No, I'm not going to. I know it's going to be terrible. Or maybe I can get a 10S Max and use it for a week and finally settle the argument between you two. About whether the 10S Max is good or bad.
Well, I put
And
my
give
sim
it
back
another
into this.
3 years and give it another 3 years, and that thing probably won't really be a thing anymore. I mean, the iPhone 7 Plus isn't really used by all that many people anymore, and that's 3 years older than. That's only 2 years older than the 10S Max. Huh.
Yeah, I'm
Right?
so surprised at how many people are holding on to their 8s.
Me too.
Oh yeah, everybody's keeping those 8s.
That's if Apple
Kinda
supported
makes sense,
iPhones
right?
for less, then people would be forced to upgrade more, and it would improve people's experience on older iPhones better, as it's still the same core iOS, so they'd still be able to get their stuff done.
One of the things that I'd say is, why does it matter if it gets iOS 17 or not? I mean, iOS 12 still gets security updates. Your security will be fine. You'll have another 2, maybe 3 years of app support.
On Android phones, still gets like I was able to download I think the latest version of Twitter on Android 5 last year. So app
Well,
support
yeah, but
will
if you
be
try that on, I guess, iOS 5, that would give you a different result.
But still, what I'm trying to say, on Android, Android phones don't get that much support, don't get as much support as iPhones do, and people and app developers have found a way to adapt. So it doesn't really matter if the 10s Max gets iOS 17 or not. In fact, it shouldn't get iOS 17.
No, I'd say every device should be, and actually it's from a moral perspective. It's not from technical perspectives or whatever. The reason for this is because we all have to agree, iOS 16, doesn't matter what device it's running on, it sucks. It's buggy.
I have a great experience with iOS 16 on my 14 Pro, and I haven't had any bugs on my 10 or SE2, which both
have
run
not.
iOS 6, nor my SE3, and they all are on iOS 16 as well.
iOS 16. iOS 16 is the worst version of iOS that I've ever used on the 14 Pro. It is, and I mean that not, like I've used iOS 15 on the 14. I mean, every single iPhone that I've used has been better on its respective original firmware than iOS 16 on the 14 Pro.
That's been the case
iOS
with
16.
so many other people too. Like my aunts had problems,
16.
my guitar teachers had problems with his.
I know that, what's his name? David Dude had problems with his 13 Pro Max on iOS 16. And apparently he's going to buy an iPhone 15 Pro Max in silver, an Apple Watch Series 9 in aluminum in silver, and a pair of AirPods Pro with a USB-C charging case. As he made that very, very explicitly clear to me what he was purchasing.
Yeah, I mean, I've had bugs on my 13 Pro Max, I've had bugs on my XS Max. It is very obvious that this iOS 16 is a buggy operating system, and I would think you'd morally, at least, be a total jerk to leave some iPhones with that. Versus last time, with the last major drop of support, it was like the iPhone 5S getting iOS 12.
That was
It needed it, just like so many other iPhones. It needed iOS 12. If iOS 17 is supposed to be the stability release,
It's not
they
going
give
to.
all of the iPhones at least the stability
iOS
release.
15 was the last stability release, so it's not going to be until 18 with Apple's 3-year cycle. That
15 was a stability release?
it was less of
I
a
wouldn't call
feature-focused
15 a
update,
stability
more of a
release.
stability update, yes. Do you remember anything that came out in iOS 15, Tabby? Do you?
I thought that
'Cause
was
you even
more
said that Apple
14.
didn't do much when you commented on my video about it.
Well, you saying that Apple said it was a stability release? Because I don't remember Apple explicitly saying
Yeah, I don't
it was a
recall them
stability
marketing
They never
it that
say,
way.
they never explicitly say that, but it's just supposed to be one.
I didn't get that vibe when using iOS 15.
I did on newer iPhones. On the
iOS
6S,
15 was okay.
on the 6S, of course, it's
iOS
total
15
crap.
was okay
But
until the end. 15.3.1 was terrible.
Oh.
And 15.7 or whatever was pretty bad too.
oh yeah, 15.7.3 is what's on my SE1 and my 6S Plus, and it's just and on one of my 6Ss, and it's just all. And my other 6S is on 15.0 beta 1, and it's all just, they all run it so slowly, they all overheat, like it's just total nightmare to the point where I think I'm gonna unfortunately have to grow my iPhone collection even more, which I'm not too excited to do, just to find phones on those phones on older firmware, so that way I can actually have fun using them. Because the only downgrades that exist for those phones right now are tethered.
Yeah, but that's why I think iOS 17 should be the last operating system that the 10 and the 8 get.
It
It
they're
has to at
probably
least
going to
get that
get
far, just something stable.
Granted, with Apple's cycle, it seems I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going I think they're going to get 18.
I think that Apple's going to discontinue the 10 and the XS both together. Of course, that's what everybody's probably saying. I don't pay attention to any of the community stuff.
I wouldn't be
think
surprised if they did that.
They did that with
they got rid of the 5S and the 6.
the 6S and the 7.
7 and the 8. Or, yeah, I guess.
They're going to do
So it's like, every phone that's similar.
So they have to wait for the 10. So they have to wait for the 10s to get enough support to justify. They have to wait for the 10s to get 7 years of 7 updates, which is 18. So if they were to follow that, then the 8 and 10s are going to have to get 18.
I think that somewhere Apple said that every iPhone is guaranteed 5 years of software support. How long's it been since the XS came out? Was it 5 years this year or last year?
This year.
This year. So the XS is guaranteed to get another year, unless that only applies to the 14 and above or whatever.
No, the 10s is
Now,
guaranteed to.
One
One
is.
The 10s no longer has guarantee after the 10s doesn't have guarantee for iOS 17.
No, so I actually have a bit of a question, right? They say that every, device gets 5 years of support. So does that mean the iPhone 12 is going to get guaranteed 7 years of support, or the iPhone 11 is going to get like 7 or 8? Because what about the iPad 9, iPad 10 that use the A13, A14? Those share chips with iPhones. So will those, since those were released like a year or two after the iPhones, will those get...
They could again support older iPads after the iPhones get dropped, like what they do now, or where the first iPad Pro still gets iOS.
Oh, people will
iPadOS
raise
16.
hell about that. People will not be happy.
Oh, people are gonna get so mad when it gets drop support, and people complain about how Apple needs to focus on iPadOS, and maybe, as Tylos of Tech said, maybe if they raise the bar, then they can make more professional features for the iPad.
I'm not
I don't
sure
know what
where
type of
Apple's
raise
heading
them.
with Huh?
I don't know. What video did you hear that on? Because I don't recall ever hearing that quote.
I don't remember. I remember he said that.
I think you might be confusing for another YouTuber.
Nope,
or
it was
something, 'cause I do
Tylos.
not-
It was Talos of Tech. I remember very explicitly. And I know it was at least. Yeah, I know for sure it was. I
I'd
remember.
say
It,
standards bar or something, but I don't think it's support bar he's talking about.
no, he said support bar. Yes, he said like maybe it should require the A10. iPadOS should now require the A10 or something when he said in a video last year.
I want to recall that long ago.
Yeah, he said that though.
I'm still holding skeptical to that.
What do you got? Do you guys have any other topics you want to talk about on this podcast?
One minor one. So, Alpha, your AirPods Pro situation, right?
Yep.
Your luck has been transferred to me.
Oh no!
So last week I took my... So this has probably been happening for about 6 months, right? I guess it was probably in December. My AirPods, the left one started kind of having volume issues. It was very subtle until I realized it back in like February. And the noise canceling also started having major problems. Didn't really work, like at all.
Yeah.
Same with transparency. So then, I didn't have a reason to get it fixed really, because I just didn't want to deal with Apple, because obviously Apple's support is not the best. So I cleaned them out and stuff, and then I'm going on a plane next month, or this month, I guess, in like 2 weeks. So I wanted noise canceling, so I take my AirPods into Apple last week. Apple just doesn't help. They apparently have this machine that they mess with in the back, and it tests the noise out, the sound quality. Well, that doesn't do anything. They say, oh, everything came back fine. And they say, maybe you need to clean it. I already did that. Maybe you need to reset it.
They said the
Already
same
did
thing
that.
with
Maybe
to
you need your
Alpha.
phone. And they test my phone out next. Oh, your phone's fine. Right? So, after that, I'm like, okay, if they don't want to deal with it, then I'll just go and I'll fix the problem myself. So what
I don't
did,
understand.
I didn't take.
Yeah.
I didn't take.
I
my
doubt
AirPods
that their
apart, but
sound
I went-
test is accounting for transparency and noise cancellation. There's no way they're testing for that. If it's
Yeah,
clearly
I asked
passing.
I asked the guy, and he said it was, but I'm still doubtful, right? But so what I did?
Yeah. There's
was
no
I
way.
just went directly. I just went directly to Apple. I said, hey, can I get an express replacement for these? They say, oh, let's test them out. Like, can I just get an express replacement? So that was like probably Sunday night, Monday night. I don't know. No, it was probably Monday night, I think. And today my two AirPods Pro came back, and my two new AirPods Pro came in, and tomorrow I am sending the old ones back. And now Apple's not going to be able to test them out and give me the whole runaround with all that. So now I just went directly to Apple and I said, hey, can I get an express replacement? That's the benefit of having Apple Care Plus. They even tried replacing the case, but I was like, yeah, I don't need a new case. Mine works fine. I don't want to, because they're probably going to charge me if they see my case. My case is messed up from like 7-8 months of coming in and out of my pocket every day, rubbing up against like coins and like my phone and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, mine's gotten a little messed up too.
Mine on my AirPods Pro 2 are pretty messed up as well. But
yeah, so mine, I was cleaning the case out, and I was using isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab and a toothbrush. I discolored them by doing that. So they're like yellowed, I guess, and I think that I accidentally rubbed off like a bit of the plastic. And now there's just these streaks of like lighter white than dark white on my AirPods. But they seem to kind of work now. They work better.
My AirPods are so scuffed on the left side.
Yeah, so I didn't realize this, but my AirPods noise canceling was like, or not even just noise canceling, the sound quality was just awful on the old ones.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just got used to it. The new sound quality, there's bass, there's soundstage, everything is good on these, sound-wise.
Yeah, there was one day I accidentally put in my original AirPods Pro, and I'm like, something doesn't sound right.
Yeah, and I also.
And it took me forever to notice it until I looked at the case for it. I'm like, this is an AirPods Pro 2.
That's why I keep my AirPods Pro
and
1 in there, so that way I always know which ones are the right AirPods.
Yeah, I decided to use Powerbeats Pro while I was waiting. Oh my, dude. I forgot why I stopped using those, and now I remember. Those things have got to have the worst comfort out of any earbuds ever. There's no noise canceling, no transparency, no wireless charging. Battery is very, very, very solid, but there's no noise canceling. What is draining battery? It's just a low quality Bluetooth connection, low quality speakers. Well, it's got a lot of bass, but that's Beats, right?
That's typical Beats.
It's just, they're cheap. They feel like $100, $150 maybe, worse than AirPods Pro, like even the first gens. But then when they're like the same price, maybe $50 less, come on. Apple could have done better with that.
I think Apple's just purposely trying to screw over the Beats brand just so that way people will buy AirPods.
I mean, the transparent Beats, what do you guys think of those?
No, I don't like transparent tech. I like translucent tech, but not transparent tech.
I don't know if I'd buy them and use them, but they look cool. They got USB-C, so that's a plus.
Oh yeah, I know some AirPods that need. I know a few AirPods that could use USB-C, aka as Alpha calls it, the superior port.
AirPods Max should have had USB-C.
Oh, definitely, especially for the price tag. I'm so mad that they didn't do it.
Yeah, but that's what I had to deal with my AirPods. I'm glad to be done with them because, now I can sit there and use my AirPods that I, paid, what, $250? Is that the price tag for these?
Yep, that's the price tag. Yeah, there's no way Apple's testing them properly.
Oh, one of my
there's just no way they're doing it.
From having a sound machine in the back.
Oh, one of my friends actually dropped his AirPods Pro 2, and that broke the microphones on them. He sent them to Apple. He talked with Apple support, sent them to Apple. They sent back his AirPods with literally nothing done.
No, so here's the thing. How can a sound machine test this crap?
Sounds subjective.
I guess it can technically test, like, the frequencies, but still, like, you need humans. Clean the AirPods first because they're gross, but because they could, so you're not having people test them out, but people testing out people's earwax, but still,
The
like,
fact
use
that
people,
Apple-
not sound machines, Apple. It's clear, it clearly ain't
Yeah.
working.
And the part that really does annoy me is the fact that Apple said, oh yeah, these things are fine, the sound quality test came back fine. No.
And they
Those
lied
things
to
are
you.
screwed.
How about the
Those-
transparency and noise cancellation test?
Yeah, because I guess it was gradual and I got used to how bad the sound quality was. It was no bass. It was just flat. And it sounded flat because it was messed up, not because it was, these sound, they're less balanced, but then, I don't care. I'd rather have something that sounds nice than balanced unless I'm doing something like audio work, which I'm not doing on a pair of wireless, earbuds.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to do that, then I would go out and buy a pair of Sennheisers.
Yeah, I just keep thinking, you know what? I mean, when I ship these out, I have to take my ear tips out anyways. Put your own set of ear tips in and test it yourself.
Oh, just do.
You can clearly hear something's wrong.
Oh yeah, they can
Like,
do
what
that.
do you...
Like, why can't Apple just do that? Like, are they that? Is Tim Cook that? I wonder if Tim Cook probably needs to be made aware of this issue.
I don't think Tim Cook knows... I don't even think that Tim Cook knows what the latest iPhone is. I think he's just the CEO and nothing else. I think that he just says, oh, deal with this to all the designers, and they deal with it.
Oh yeah, Tim Cook. I mean, I'm sure he knows what the latest iPhone is, but
He probably doesn't have one.
he would have to. He's the CEO of Apple.
Dude probably has a Galaxy S10. No, I'm playing.
Nah, not him. Not him.
He probably has Apple products, but especially he would have to have them in his mansion where he has all his in his mansion whereas one person on Twitter made a joke about where he put all the iPhone power bricks that he doesn't include in iPhones anymore.
Oh, never mind. Tim Cook uses iPhones in advance to when they come out.
Yeah, see, he probably is using a 15 Pro Max right now.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I wouldn't say this early, maybe in a couple more months.
Mark Zuckerberg's a Galaxy fanboy.
Didn't he used to use a MacBook though?
I don't know. Okay, people also ask,
I'm sure
does
once
Tim
Apple
Cook
did their
own
thing.
Apple? Does the CEO of Samsung have an iPhone? This is stupid. People also ask, does the CEO of Samsung have an iPhone?
Maybe.
Probably has one. Probably doesn't use it.
If I recall, the CEO of Huawei used an iPhone.
He uses the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra as his primary phone. Well, I guess that would make sense as he.
Obvious.
I guess that would make sense as
Yeah, who
he
does?
hates Apple for that thing. Apple for basically destroying their business.
They give him a lot of business, though.
Well, Apple had started exposing Meta for their privacy, so caused their business to go down. Start going.
Oh, you're
down.
talking about Mark Zuckerberg. I thought you were still talking about Samsung.
Hold on, I'm
Nope.
getting a call right now.
And we experienced a little connection issue, so, okay, connection issue resolved. Back to the show.
Well, do we have room for one more unplanned topic?
Oh yes.
If anybody's interested. So me being the EV enthusiast, of course, I gotta slip some of that news in, but actually, we were having a whole conversation about charge connectors during that one episode. Well, things just got a lot more interesting thanks to Ford.
Ford's now using the
Maybe.
NACS. Ford's gonna start using the NACS connector.
What's that?
It's a connector that Tesla superchargers
It's the
use,
same connector that Tesla uses.
which means that it supports the more reliable network and the
Cool,
better
I guess.
speeds.
Cool, I guess.
Yeah.
I think Ford is definitely going to survive the EV transition at this point because they're going.
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident with how Jim Farley is handling this whole thing. Ford is definitely going to make it in the electric future.
Yeah, Ford is just.
GM, on the other hand,
Did you know that in the financial crisis of 2008, GM had to borrow almost $800 million, but Ford didn't have to borrow a single penny.
yeah, I mean, Ford ended up losing a lot of brands in the process, but
I think Ford is pretty
they
good.
still survived.
I think they're a great car company too. I mean, even my dad still has his old Mustang. My family
Yeah,
doesn't
if I-
drive Fords much.
If I was to buy an American car, I would buy a Mustang or I don't know if I would want an Edge, but probably a Mustang or something like that.
I'd probably buy a Ford too, honestly. I'm getting a Mercedes. I have a Mercedes, but I honestly like Ford. I would buy either a Ford or a Tesla. They're both pretty reliable cars. Of course, that's for American cars. I probably will never buy a German car myself.
Yeah, I wish I could like Ford more, except I don't know how they did it, but somehow they managed to perfectly engineer the most uncomfortable seat I have ever sat in.
I personally don't mind Ford seats, but it's also been 2 years since I've last sat in a Ford seat, and that was in my '67 Mustang, or my dad's.
Yeah. I just wish I could like them more, but seat comfort, as little as it might be to some people, if it's to the point where you're constantly shifting around in it and getting people in the car's attention because of that, I think that draws the line to the point where, okay, no, you can't buy this, you can't drive this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Fusion that I used to sit in, that the seats were okay, but of course I was like 7, so now I think
Yeah, something I find a
seats
little
are
weird,
very good.
actually. Something I found a little weird. You know how Ford had given up making sedans 5 years ago, or was it something like
I
that?
thought they still made sedans.
No, they gave that up a long time ago.
Come
They
on,
were one of the first people to
Ford!
announce it.
Come on, Ford. Now,
And you want to know something hilarious? On my trip to Washington, D.C., I couldn't go 60 seconds without seeing a Ford Fusion. And not an old one, I mean a brand new one. Well, quote-unquote brand new one, because they stopped making those a long time ago. But still, I couldn't go 60 seconds without seeing one of them.
Ford should start making I know technically the Mustang is the Mustang's more of a sports car, but
I don't know why those things are so popular. It was not like a amazing car by any means. It had very, very outdated technology.
I think the
Like,
Ford Fusion
whole
was just
thing-
liked because it was just a basic, reliable sedan.
Yeah, I think the problem was back then, everyone still had money. We weren't in as big of an economic crisis as we are today.
I'm not in an
people
economic
still
crisis.
had so people had enough money to splurge on fancier things or more interesting things, and the Fusion just was not that.
Though
It just drove me wild
the
how I
most
saw
common
that many
sedan I
Fusions
see,
on the
which
trip.
is the most popular sedan in America, is the second most popular vehicle in America is the Toyota Camry. I see so many of those.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, those unfortunately are not
There are
going to.
so many Corollas and Camrys and
Toyota, it's weird.
Priuses.
Luckily, Toyota's probably not going to survive the EV transition, so that's about to change.
I think they will. I mean, with how widespread of a name they have, and how the Prius literally was the first like real hybrid car that a lot of people had. You know, I mean, it's hard to
Yeah.
still even today. It's hard to go a mile without seeing a Prius in a town.
Yeah, very true.
And
It's just
the
they
fact
are
that,
coming into this full battery electric market, kicking and screaming. They absolutely do not want to do this. I mean, the
I think the
BZ4X
new
is fine
Prius-
around town, but
look, I'm someone that does not like the Prius at all, but I think the new Prius is good, not because it's a good car, but because the tech that it's putting into it, right? The tech that is in that thing is going to shape the way that other cars adapt to this stuff.
Yes, because
I think the Prius should have gone full electric.
It's the one Toyota that makes sense to do that.
it should just be
Yeah.
electric. The Prius should just be full electric now. Toyota.
I mean,
Toyota's, if they don't do something within the next year, Toyota's gonna be dead within the next decade. If they don't make the
I mean,
Prius full
could you-
electric, they're probably gonna be dead. Or
Could you
do
name
they have
a
an
better
electric
car?
Camry or an electric Corolla?
probably not.
Like if they make
Could
the
you name a better car to get the world started on EVs than the Prius? The Prius people already know as being, battery powered car, the silent car. People
the
used to
Prius
say,
is perfect to make electric, for goodness sake. Like
because people used to say, if you hear a car, then you hear a car, unless it's a Prius. People used to say, be careful crossing that road. A Prius could be coming and you don't know it.
like
Yeah.
we need the Prius should be electric. Like Toyota doesn't see this business opportunity.
Yeah, and I would think the people who initially bought into hybrids back then, I think those same people would have already bought into the full electric future.
They would have.
I mean, my area
So-
has.
My area is starting
Yeah,
to
so-
too. Is that there's a few, as I'm seeing several Teslas and even Chevy Bolts, which that's such a mistake to discontinue at Chevy.
Yeah,
See,
so
the
true.
way that my area is, it used to be, it's probably 70% Toyotas. Now, it's probably 20% Toyotas, 40% Teslas, and then whatever else. There are so many Teslas in my area, it is insane.
In my region, I'm trying to think. The majority of it.
And there's someone in my neighborhood that's got a Mach-E, which I think is really cool.
I would say
Ooh,
that
that's
probably
nice.
about 40% of my area is Toyota. I would say that another good 30% of it is Ford, primarily because of the F-150. And I would say the other 20 is probably The other 20 is probably Chevy. And then that's all divided between Tesla, Ram, GMC. GMC is probably 10. Ram's 7, and Tesla is 3% maybe.
You live in a somewhat country area, right?
Yeah, I live in a half urban, half rural area.
Yeah, it makes sense then with the F-150s.
Oh yeah, people in big cities always wonder why you need a pickup truck, but my family no longer owns. My family doesn't have a pickup truck, and we often have to ask to rent them just because. We often have to borrow them just because we have to haul heavy stuff sometimes. Even my dad's considering maybe getting us another pickup truck just because they're kind of necessary.
I think the use of pickup trucks is a little... I've noticed a big problem with pickup trucks. I saw this one poll on Twitter that Drew retweeted, and it was, why are people buying the Cybertruck? What are they going to do with it? They're just going to treat it like how Joe Schmo treats a sedan. We go to work, we go to the store. treat it as a commuter vehicle.
The purpose of a truck of having a pickup truck is for the times when we might need to have a trailer to go pick up our other cars because they get stranded 2.5 hours away from home, like how it happened to a certain Alpha 2 years ago, or how we might need to haul around a lawnmower so that way we can mow other people's lawns for money, or so that way we can haul new furniture like couches or like that big chest in my room, or maybe we need to haul those around. Like, there's so much use for a pickup truck.
That, and my opinion is the truck is designed, well, actually, it shouldn't be an opinion. This really should be fact, but sadly, it has to be an opinion. The truck is not to make you look like you work. It is actually designed to do work.
Yeah.
Other than that, if those of you buy trucks to make you look like you do work, make you look like you're cool or something, well, first of all, people who modify their trucks to remove the exhaust, make them as loud as possible and such.
Oh, that's so...
You're not cool.
Oh,
you are
that's
always
not-
going to be looked upon as the city jerk.
Oh, that's why my dad was actually when my dad was looking at buying a new car, he was trying to go to he looked at cars from California. Literally everybody in California removes the mufflers from their cars. And my dad was looking at cars that came from California, and he was like, nope, can't deal. Nope, not dealing with that, since there's always such obnoxious cars that drive by my neighborhood because they're so... Like, there was even one that... They even interrupt my YouTube videos, even. That's how loud
They've
they
interrupted
are.
this podcast, even.
Yes, like, they're so loud that they just drive me insane. And if you ever wonder why California is so go green, it's because it's that way people buy stupid electric cars, so that way they don't have to listen to all that stupid crap because people do dumb decisions in the first place.
For me, that's not trucks, that's planes going above my house. A lot.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, where you live, I know a lot of planes fly over.
A lot of planes fly
I
over
live
my area
next to, like,
too.
I live next to like 4 airports. There's a lot.
I live next to one
Yeah, you've got a
municipal
lot near
airport,
ya.
but I see a lot of airports. But I see a lot of planes flying overhead me. Luckily, they're high enough so that way, unless you're outside, you can't actually hear them. And even then, it's always fun to spot planes since you can. Since it's still a rare enough occasion that you want to look.
Yeah, I can hear one right now if I listen close enough, and I'm in a basement.
Yep.
This is why we need electric planes, people.
No, that wouldn't
And
solve anything.
That wouldn't.
Electric
help
planes would not
anything.
solve anything.
And they're cool, they're cool vehicles. I like planes, but if I could get a bit more sleep, then that would be pretty good.
Electric motors are silent though, so you could get a bit more.
Well,
That's
more-
not how planes work.
It's like
That is not
like
how
the
planes work
wind.
at all.
it's like the wind and the air
Oh.
force going down, something like that. It's like the air itself going down, and it's like the whooshing noise. That's
Well, in that case, then I guess we're screwed forever. I guess we just have to enjoy this moment of peacefulness before flying cars come out. Whenever that.
unless we make when flying cars come out, we're gonna have to make fences for like the top of our houses. We're basically gonna have to live in a big snow globe.
Oh, did you know that they actually?
I hope I'm not alive for that future.
Did you know that they actually have materials that are designed to be sort of like snow globe-like houses that are completely solid, so that way they can't absorb any outside temperature.
That might also be useful for those who are bothered by plane noise.
I don't know about noise, but we're still gonna have to live in snow globe type houses when flying cars come out. And that's if we don't want to go outside.
There's gonna have to be regulations though. Don't fly over these people's houses. You can't really have apartments at that point because,
You're asking the
terrorists are
government to
gonna-
make regulations on cars? They suck. They can't even get taillights in a good spot.
But then they have
Imagine how easy it would be to just, go out, drunk drive or go out and smash into an apartment building. Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, they're gonna have to. That'll probably be.
Then imagine someone throwing something out of a flying car. Yeah, if you're hauling a sofa around in the air, that's gonna.
Oh
I am so
wait
glad
until
those are not a
flying
thing
trucks
yet.
come out. Then there will be people hauling lots of sometimes even more flying cars up in the air.
Yeah.
I
All
actually
to beat traffic. I mean, I guess it would be. That's all to beat traffic. People say
yeah,
that's what flying car. We already have flying cars. It's called planes.
but
Instead of
Yeah.
traffic,
flying cars
instead
will
of
be
traffic, you
personal.
have waiting at a terminal for an hour because instead of traffic, you have let's wait at a terminal for an hour because we accidentally overbooked.
Oh, the idea of flying cars is to get rid of all that, so that way you can just fly whenever you want.
It's only just going to move it to the air, though.
But if you want to,
Well,
then you
if
can
an
go.
accident happens
But if you
in the
want
air.
to, but if it's too crowded up in the air, then you'll be able to go back down the ground and travel.
I think that if an accident happens in the air, there's not going to be all that many traffic jams on, at least in the air. It might make the ground traffic a little
Oh,
bit
but that'll
worse.
definitely increase casualties.
Yeah,
Oh,
it might
air.
make the traffic on the ground a little bit worse, but
Because if there's a crash in the air, though, what if
what goes up must come down.
so it's gonna come crashing down into apartment buildings. Could even come
Houses,
crashing down on
other
my
cars,
house right
highways.
now.
Lakes. What happens when a plane, gets messed up in the air? What happens when something happens to a plane midair? Things gotta come down.
Oh, it comes down. And nobody survives, usually.
Yep. And that's a commercial aircraft. Imagine how that would be with a, personal vehicle.
Aren't car crashes the #1 cause of death in the U.S.?
I don't. They are in young people, not in old people.
Hmm.
But plane crashes are just gonna make it even worse. Since this time they're gonna kill more people than there are in cars.
All right, let's get off of that, actually, because
Do you have any more topics that I want to talk about on this
Deadly.
podcast other than flying cars?
Well, I never actually finished up that one. We just ended up getting so sidetracked.
Oh.
Yeah, go on about that then. Keep
So,
going.
Ford is now switching to the NACS connector, which is the connector Tesla developed, and it's going to allow them access to basically the entire supercharging network, which means finally another brand aside from Tesla has a reliable charging network for road trips and such. But there's one thing about it that really shocks me compared to, well, out of all companies to do it, I did not expect Ford to do it.
I
Not
expected
because,
Ford to do
well,
it.
The reason why I didn't expect Ford to do it is because they're lazy. Legacy Auto. They're a legacy brand. I would have expected more of the EV startups to do it because, well, they're EV startups. They're making electric cars. They want to make it properly because, well, that's their bread and butter. Compared to Legacy Auto, electric cars are not their bread and butter yet.
But Ford's definitely trying to make it, though. Ford's sure trying. Bad
So,
word.
because
a lot to
it-
say. To
yeah.
get and make it the bread and butter. But I'm personally not surprised that Ford's doing it since they're spending so much money on research and development. And they're already removing
Oh, I am
in-person
so glad they're doing it.
dealerships.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see what everyone else is thinking. Like, the startup brands especially. Now that Legacy Auto, especially since they are the first to publicly announce they're switching to it, I think that means Rivian and Lucid, hello, wake up.
I think the Rivian Lucid.
There's a
are
better
gonna
standard
die.
out there that even Legacy Auto agrees.
Ford,
Yeah.
funny enough, isn't just a legacy auto brand. They're the first mainstream auto brand in America. So the first
it's-
car company
It's
effectively made a car was the second to first to switch after Tesla opened it up. I guess they gotta be first to everything.
yeah. So EV startups, including Rivian, Lucid, anyone else who I didn't mention, you might want to take the hint. Nax is clearly better. Drop CCS right now, and then also, how about the rest of Legacy Auto? Hey, you think you might want to follow in Ford's steps on this one?
GM, of course, isn't going to do it because they don't even know.
Before anybody screams, we already found out GM is actually going to do it. It's just we recorded this episode before they actually made that announcement. So don't scream at us, please.
Because they don't even know how to keep their own EVs going like the Bolt, and they don't even know how to keep CarPlay in their cars as they're removing it.
That and Altium has. They also don't even know how to build Altium because they have been at such a slow production rate with it.
Oh yeah, GM is going to die for sure.
Funny enough, I saw the Silverado EV on my way back actually from DC.
I see a bunch of Chevys in my area too, in fact. And I see a bunch of Kias in my area too. I forgot about that brand, as there's one literally pulling out from right across my street.
For information, the Silverado EV hasn't even been released to the public yet.
That might have a small
Yeah.
chance, but that's succeeding. But the F-150 Lightning, I think, has
I mean,
a high...
apparently the Cadillac Lyric is starting to become a popular site, but
Nope, I'm not
well,
seeing
slightly
any of that.
popular, not that much, but yeah, there's barely any Lyrics out there. There's barely any other GM's Ultium platform vehicles out there. I have yet to see a Hummer EV. Thank goodness I haven't seen one. I only saw the not yet released Chevy Silverado EV, but still, they're not doing so hot. They just are.
The only
not doing
EVs
so
I
hot.
see out in the wild, only EVs I see out in the wild are Teslas and Chevy Bolts.
I saw Kia EV6 today in my town.
I don't recognize I don't recognize Kias by their specific models though, so maybe they're going electric.
Yeah, I'm surprised my town's starting to become a hotspot for them because I'm at least seeing at least one electric car every day now. Be it either I'm surprised I'm seeing it because where I live, it's the middle of nowhere. You guys never heard of the town I live in, so
I have, or only from you.
but yeah, I mean, take a look at the map. It's the middle of nowhere. It takes literally the same amount of time to get from Detroit to DC as from Detroit to here. Why does it take that long?
Because there's no interstates where you live.
No, like the actual distance is like 500 miles from here to Detroit.
It's that far?
Yeah!
That's like a tech. That's like That's like an AFA. That's more than half of Texas.
Yeah, it takes a while to get from here to Detroit. It takes at least a full day.
Oh my gosh. I can go anywhere in my state in less than 4 hours.
Yeah, it drove me nuts how on the trip, it took 2 days to get from here to DC. First day, all the way from here to Detroit. Didn't even leave the state. Second day, we went through Ohio, Pennsylvania, Maryland, a small sliver of Virginia, and then we got to DC.
What, Northern Virginia?
Yeah, Northern Virginia.
Do you know which cities?
It's literally right outside of DC.
Oh, so like Ashburn, Fairfax,
Yeah, those areas.
Arlington, maybe.
Yep, pass
Those
through
are really
Arlington.
nice areas. Did you pass through Pentagon City?
Yep, pass by the Pentagon.
That is one of my favorite places. That place is beautiful. All of the everything there, all the buildings just look so nice.
So, you want to see how big the distance is between here and Detroit? I am not putting this on the video version of the podcast for a reason, but you want to see the distance?
Yes.
You already know what's good without light mode, though.
So, obviously that dot is where I am. Here's Detroit. It's 500 miles.
Oh! I never realized that Michigan was that big, though I've never been there, so...
Yeah, it takes 10 hours to get across practically the entire state.
Which car did you take? Your main car, or you rent a car, or what?
Actually, I rode a bus with a group.
Oh.
To go to DC?
Man. Oh,
So my
no,
car's
man.
going to go to Petoskey. My car's going to go to Petoskey next month. And that's
Dude,
in
that
like
bus
this
could
area
not-
right here.
That bus could not have smelled all that good, man.
Actually, the person who owns it actually does a very good job keeping it clean. It smelled just fine.
It's surprising. Every
Yeah.
bus that I've ever been on has smelled rather funky.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the guy who kept it, the guy who owns the bus, he keeps it very clean. But yeah, I have to make a trip from here all the way to here next month in my car.
You have to make a trip from
That's
where?
not gonna be fun, knowing how questionable my car is. I have to make a trip from obviously where my dot is right here to this area right here.
Ooh.
Hopefully that thing doesn't break down.
Oh. I believe the powertrain will get me there. It's just I don't know if the body will hold up.
What are you going
That's
there for?
the question. There's a family reunion going on, but
Oh, cool.
okay, I could ride in the same vehicle with my parents like I usually do, but I have to split off after Petoskey to somewhere else in the middle of the UP here.
Alright, well, do you have anything else you want to talk about on the show, or shall we wrap up?
I think that's it for me.
Yep.
We're gonna have to probably cut out the location part, but
Huh?
we're probably gonna have to cut out the part where we explain how long it takes to get us.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
Oh yeah, I'll cut that part out. I don't mind talking about my general location to everywhere else because it's in the middle of nowhere.
But I do care. As always, thank you all for tuning into the very long season 3 premiere of the iTunes of TIFP. As always, we hope you all enjoyed this episode, and as always, we are saying goodbye for now. Goodbye, everybody.
Alright,
See ya.
Have a good night. No more Nissan Altima for me.
Goodbye.